Madam Acting Deputy President. It's Anti-Poverty Week this week, not that you would notice in the Australian Parliament, as the government continues its attack on ordinary Australians. Since the new management took over, there have been no reversal of policies which hurt Australians, and in fact the rhetoric on cutting penalty rates has increased under the Turnbull government. Anglicare's report today, entitled "Who is Being Left Behind?" states, and I quote, that it's pretty hard to make a difference when the larger wheels of government policy, political ideology and the economic forces are all stacked up to go the other way. Under its new management, it's the same old in terms of their direction. And despite election night promises, when the old management promised the Australian people we will not leave anyone behind, we know that whoever is running the Liberal Party and their compliant mates in the National Party, Australians have seen broken promise after broken promise, and many Australians have been left behind as a direct result of the policies of this now Turnbull government. As these attacks on penalty rates have increased, Mr Turnbull, the new Prime Minister, has led the charge. And no matter how many selfies he takes of himself using public transport, the real truth is that the Prime Minister and his party are completely out of touch with ordinary working Australians who rely on penalty rates to supplement their low incomes. Despite the PM's assertion that we live in a 7-day economy, the facts don't support that. None of our government institutions are open on weekends, and all of our major sporting and grand finals are held on weekends. It is when Australians enjoy leisure time and enjoy time with their families. Remember when the old Prime Minister said to weekend workers, "If you don't want to work on weekends, then you don't have to." Now the new Prime Minister is saying we live in a 7-day economy. The government wants to create a two-tiered system for weekend workers, where it would seem that some workers are more entitled to penalty rates than others. As the recent Productivity Commission report suggested, that some workers, emergency service workers, some of our health workers, should get a penalty because it recognised that working weekends took those workers away from their families. But of course that report ignores the thousands of other workers in retail, in hospitality, in aged care, disability services, cleaning and security workers, and in many more who work weekends and miss out on family time, but don't rate or mention, don't deserve a penalty rate according to the government. It's okay for the penalty rates, their penalty rates, to be cut or completely abolished. 4.5 million Australians rely on penalty rates. It makes up between 30 and 50% of a worker's pay. Many weekend workers are low pay. And recently, at Labor's Fair Work Task Force inquiry in Perth, we heard from 3 Western Australian workers. One aged care worker, Judith, whose base hourly rate is $20.50 an hour. Obviously, Judith relies on her penalty rates to boost her very low pay. Without it, she told the inquiry, the family would have to sell their house or let their private health insurance go and forego their very meagre family holidays. But of course, in Western Australia, we've had this experiment with losing weekend penalty rates before, under another Liberal government, which interestingly, like the Howard government, lost office because it went too far with harsh industrial relations law. The Court government experimented with individual workplace agreements, and for the first time in Western Australian history, these agreements were able to absolutely undercut the award. What did we see over the 6 or 7 years that these individual contracts were in force? We saw women workers' wages fall way behind and are now 26 times behind average male weekly earnings. Western Australia is a standout in terms of women being particularly low paid. We saw hospitality workers lose their weekend penalties. We saw aged care workers, childcare workers, security officers, cleaning. All of the areas the government thinks it's okay to take penalty rates. We saw all of those workers lose their weekend penalties. And I heard Senator Back before say that somehow this is going to create more jobs. Well, I can tell you from the Parliamentary Library's research of what happened in Western Australia, it made not one scrap of difference to the unemployment rates in Western Australia. So the meagre 50% or 25% or even 100% that penalty rate workers lost in Western Australia as their penalty rates were completely abolished by another Liberal government, the unemployment rate remained the same. So the profits simply went into the bosses' pockets. They did not create employment. And what is this employment that the Turnbull government thinks will be created by saving 50% on a weekend penalty? More low-paid jobs, more low-paid jobs, more workers who will need the support of a government who is also intent on cutting family tax benefits, on making pensions line up with CPI, who's done nothing but cut all of those safety net benefits. That's what the government is going to do if it intends to go ahead with cutting penalty rates. It would simply create, if it's successful, and the West Australian experiment was quite the opposite, it did not create more jobs, and they're facts. That's not a survey by their boss John Hart from the Restaurant and Catering Association, not a survey from their friend that somehow magically says thousands of new jobs will be created. This is fact. Fact, not fiction. This is fact. This happened in Western Australia. In fact, one of the team in my office, she got a flat rate in 1998 as a chef, $13 for Friday work, Saturday work and Sunday work. $13 an hour is what she got. Now, when the Gallop Labor government came in and abolished individual contracts, she then started to get a penalty. And what happened? Well, guess what happened? The number of workers in the kitchen remained exactly the same. So even when the boss was paying her $13 an hour, there were not more workers in the kitchen. And then when it got converted back to the award rate and she got the penalty she was entitled to, the staff remained the same. Now, what's happened to that employer? Well, since then, that employer now has 3 top-class restaurants in Western Australia and a cafe, so obviously never had a problem with paying penalties. And the penalties that weren't paid to Claire when she worked there as a chef simply went into their pocket. So it is a myth to suggest abolishing penalty rates creates more employment. The facts are there in Western Australia. Not one single job was created. And I don't know where this other thought bubble of creating tax credits come from. We know in the UK that's another failed experiment. We know that the Turnbull government wants to remain joined at the hip to the mother country, but the reality is that tax credits in the UK have failed. And of course, what we know about schemes like tax credits is the government can put them in place, and indeed the government can take them away. So the only sure thing that workers have got is to keep their penalty rates, to make sure that employers continue to fund penalty rates and not our tax system. This is another failed Turnbull government scheme.